Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. To the northeast of Italy, we see the incredible Dolomite mountain ranges, with some climbers scaling them. On this day, two girls are packing their bags to climb the mountain together the next morning. Kelly and Sophie are two friends on vacation, planning to climb the side of the mountain that is over 3,000 meters high. Kelly takes off her necklace, and we catch a brief flashback of her memories of the time she and her late boyfriend climbed the same mountain together. She then puts the necklace back in her bag when four loud men arrive in a jeep, grabbing the girl's attention. One of the guys is named Josh, who notices Sophie and seems interested in her. A moment later, he goes to their room and knocks on the door. He introduces himself and starts using cheesy pickup lines on Sophie. Then he invites both girls to join them around a campfire for a friendly gathering and camping to drink together. Sophie, however, declines after Kelly says no. Soon, we see one of Josh's friends named Zach, who mentions that the locals told them they are the only ones planning to climb that day since it's frozen up there. They also discuss how it's wrong for Josh to be hitting on girls even though he's engaged. Josh then approaches them and starts making unfunny jokes, irritating his longtime friend Taylor. Here we can see that Josh doesn't seem like a good friend, being clueless and aggressive. Inside the cabin, Sophie tries to convince Kelly to accept the invitation they received, but Sophie shows that she's on the same wavelength as her friend, who seems quite excited about the idea of meeting a new guy. So, after a bit of insistence, Sophie convinces Kelly, promising that they will return in time for their planned activities. As the sun sets, we see the girls sitting with the guys around a campfire. Sophie is chatty, having no problem teasing Josh and the others, while Kelly remains calm and quietly sips her drink. Sophie teases Josh about his huge watch, and he tells her it's a special watch with a personalized locator, where he can press a button and a group of ninjas will appear to rescue him. Jokingly, he says. Sophie also tells the guys that she and Kelly plan to climb to the top of Antilao, to which Taylor says they also plan to climb the same mountain but take an easier route to the summit. They all become shocked when Sophie says they plan to climb up the face of the mountain. Shortly after, Kelly gets up to go to bed, but Josh suddenly grabs her arm and tries to make her stay. Kelly clearly dislikes this behavior, and Josh lets her go after the others tell him to leave her alone. After Kelly leaves, Josh suggests that they all climb up the face of the mountain with the girls in the morning. Sophie laughs at him, saying they don't have the balls to climb with them and that instead, they will take the easy path for cowards to reach the top. This clearly irritates Josh, and the others feel awkward after Sophie's words. Back in her cabin, Kelly turns on her camera and watches a video she made with her late boyfriend Luca. They talk about how this is her 5th time climbing Antilao with Kelly, who is doing it for the first time. We also see a flashback of Kelly and Sophie at a climbing gym, where she and Luca met. Kelly sheds a few tears while watching the video and then goes to sleep. Outside, Sophie has had too much to drink and is making out with Josh. She gets up to relieve herself in the forest, and Josh's friends try to tell him to cool it, reminding him of his fiancée, Amy. But Josh says he won't sleep with just one woman for the next 40 years and goes after Sophie. When Sophie finishes and is about to return, Josh appears and tries to kiss her. Sophie tells him to let her go, but he starts to force himself on her, expressing his anger at being ridiculed by her earlier. Josh's friends hear Sophie screaming and assume that Josh is doing something wrong to her, while Sophie manages to scratch his face. Suddenly, one of the guys arrives and pulls Josh off Sophie. She flees while the others arrive and quickly decide to go after her in an attempt to calm her down, saying that it was a misunderstanding and that everything would be resolved. But the pursuit takes a dangerous turn when they catch up to her, and she is grabbed from behind by one of them. She bites his hand, and at that moment, Josh pushes her from the edge of the cliff. Sophie falls, breaking her spine, but she is still alive. Meanwhile, Kelly wakes up upon hearing noises outside. She goes after Sophie and only finds the abandoned campfire. As the guys surround Sophie, who pleads for help, they contemplate their next move. The guy named Reynolds is about to call 911, but Josh tells him that no one will believe it was an accident because there's a scratch on his face and bite marks on Zach's hand, and there will be skin under Sophie's nails. Josh manipulates his friends, saying they need to kill her, otherwise, their lives will be ruined. Here, we learn that Josh has been involved in a previous crime. He picks up a large rock and repeatedly strikes Sophie in the head with it. Then he hands the rock to Zach and goads him to do the same to the girl. He even takes Reynolds' hands and covers them with Sophie's blood, ensuring that everyone is equally involved. Afterward, Josh suggests they clean their nails and throw the body further down the cliff, making it look like she was drunk trying to climb and fell. While all of this is happening, Kelly approaches the area and sees the guys in the distance, realizing that something is wrong. She grabs her camera and starts filming. Unfortunately, she unintentionally lets out a scream when she sees them throwing her friend, alerting the guys to her presence. Josh notices that she has a camera, and they all chase after her. She runs and hides in the forest while the guys split up to find her. Kelly manages to make it back to her cabin when Reynolds appears in front of her but doesn't stop her from passing. She grabs her climbing gear and rushes to the face of Mount Antilao, hoping to escape the guys since they are not experienced climbers like her. As she starts climbing, they catch up to her, and Taylor climbs behind her. He is not as fast as Kelly, but he manages to catch up to her a few times, and she steps on his hand. At one point, he reaches her and pulls her, causing part of her equipment to fall, but she manages to make him lose his balance and fall, breaking his leg. Josh becomes furious and yells at Kelly that he will get her. The guys take their injured friend back to their cabin, and Josh fills him with painkillers instead of taking him to the emergency room. Before they go after Kelly again, they tell Taylor to call for help if they don't return within 24 hours. Josh is completely focused on recovering the camera, which contains evidence that would declare them as murderers, and he doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. While the three guys prepare to climb after Kelly, she opens her bag to see what equipment she has on hand, which isn't much. Her ropes fell when Taylor was trying to reach her, and she doesn't have what she actually needs for such a climb. But for her, it's a fight for survival, and she won't give up. Below her, the guys find her dropped cell phone, which fell when Kelly started climbing. Josh keeps the phone and then tells the others to continue preparing while he runs back to the cabin to get gloves. After some time passes and Josh hasn't returned yet, Zach goes after him. He finds Josh hurrying out and reproaches him for not waiting as he asked. Then they return to start climbing, while Kelly continues her ascent. She remains focused and calm, using Luca's words as motivation to keep going. She remembers him telling her that climbing is like chess, where she must focus her mind instead of her muscles. So she follows his advice and takes out a map to check her route before continuing. At this moment, we realize that the guys are not far behind as they have better supplies and equipment. Meanwhile, Kelly encounters more problems ahead when she comes face to face with a snake slithering over her hand. She sweats with fear but doesn't move or panic until the snake leaves. In fact, her hands are not covered in gloves, and the climb has started to take a toll on her hands. She stops to take a sip of water, but unfortunately, her bottle falls below. Josh sees this and mocks her while drinking water from his own bottle. He continues to insult her by sending friend requests from her social media account and using his phone to post fake statuses in her name. Kelly does her best to ignore him and proceeds to powder her hands to continue climbing. She then comes across a rope that will greatly assist her in her climb, but she is unable to reach it. Kelly extracts a wire from the lining of her backpack and uses it to reach the rope. She recalls Luca's lessons on the maneuver and succeeds. We also see Josh and his friends, who thanks to their equipment, manage to reach a higher point using an easier route to climb faster and higher than Kelly, as she restricts herself to the pure side of the mountain, making it impossible for them to reach her. Later, Kelly stumbles upon an old tent and takes a break in it. By this time, Josh and the others have reached a ledge above her, blocking her path upward as she would come face to face with them, and she wouldn't be able to descend anymore as she is exhausted from the climb so far. Josh throws a rope to her and tells her to tie the camera to it, promising to let her go unharmed. But instead, Kelly ties a note to the rope, further infuriating Josh. With no other choice, Kelly is forced to spend the night in the tent she found. Luckily, she finds various items in the tent, including a sharp object, which she keeps close by for possible use. Kelly repairs the tent as best she can and manages to climb back into it later. Although her path upward has been obstructed by Josh and the others, she at least has the chance to rest and eat a little. It is at this point that Josh and the others, upon seeing her cell phone, discover that a year ago, Kelly and her boyfriend visited the same location to climb the mountain. But unbeknownst to Kelly, her boyfriend was also planning something else, a marriage proposal. He starts proposing to her there in the heights, but this happy occasion is interrupted when he loses his balance and falls, not surviving the fall, leaving Kelly devastated by what just happened. Back in the present, as Kelly settles in for the night, Josh fills a bag with rocks and throws it to hit her. Fortunately, Kelly manages to stay safe. However, later that night, Kelly is awakened by Zach, who rappels down to grab her. He holds onto her, and Kelly grabs the knife she found earlier and stabs him. This sends them both out of the tent, and they cling to the rope as they fall. Reynolds and Josh pull them up, but when Josh grabs Kelly by her hair and takes her necklace, she retrieves the knife from Zach and cuts the rope. Extremely lucky, Kelly manages to hold onto the ledge and avoid falling to her death. However, as she tries to pass onto the rock, the tent detaches and falls, leaving her with no other option but to spend the night shivering in the cold. Kelly manages to hold onto her bag, which contains the camera, but Josh took her necklace with the ring. Zach is now injured and wants Josh to call for help, something that Ray agrees with. To appease them, Josh agrees and leaves, saying he will make a call for help. That night, while the three of them are sleeping, Zach turns to Reynolds and tells him that he suspects Josh is lying about making the call for help. According to Zach, Josh didn't make any call, and he tells Reynolds that earlier when Josh went to the cabin to get his gloves, he saw him leaving the cabin with a panicked look. Zach suspects that Josh killed Taylor while he was inside because he didn't want Taylor to call for help. Therefore, Zach and Reynolds plan to activate the locator on Josh's watch, but when they try to do it, they fail because Josh is actually awake and listening. He threatens them again, and everyone goes back to sleep. Later, Zach, who injured his leg, gets up to urinate, but then Josh comes from behind and hits him on the head, pushing him off the cliff, and Kelly witnesses it. Later, Reynolds wakes up from his sleep, and Josh lies to him about sending Zach to check on Taylor. Reynolds convinces Josh to send him to talk to Kelly about the camera and her life, and Josh does as he asks. When Reynolds finds Kelly, he gives her food and apologizes for what happened to her friend. Regarding the camera, he tells Kelly to give it to him, and he will tell Josh that he pushed her off the mountain. But instead, Kelly tells Reynolds that Josh killed Zach because she saw his body fall from the ledge. Reynolds doesn't believe her, so Kelly tells him that Josh will kill both of them no matter what happens. They proceed as planned, with Reynolds taking the camera back to Josh. When Josh checks the camera, he discovers that the memory card is missing. At the same time, Reynolds tries to call Taylor's phone, but to his surprise, he hears it ringing in Josh's pocket. Then the two start attacking each other. Unfortunately, Josh manages to overpower Reynolds, then sets him on fire and throws him tight off the cliff, and the fire eventually cuts the rope, causing Reynolds to fall. Now that all his friends are dead, it's Kelly's turn. Meanwhile, Kelly looks around and sees that her knife is not far away, so she moves carefully to grab it. Once she retrieves it, the sight of a snake gives her an idea of what to do next. Josh prepares to attack Kelly, and when he confronts her, he demands to know where the memory card is. Kelly deceives him by telling him that the card is in her bag, inside a crevice. Josh is encouraged to put his hand inside, and as soon as he does, his hand is bitten by a snake. He becomes enraged by Kelly's plan and starts attacking her. Kelly does her best to fight him, and in the end, she gains the upper hand. Because of this, Josh is forced to grab onto a rock, and he starts losing strength. Kelly is able to retrieve her necklace from him and also presses the button on his watch to call for immediate assistance. She then places her foot on his hand, causing Josh to eventually lose all his strength and fall to his death. Kelly is relieved that her nightmare is over and that she still has her engagement ring, along with all the evidence. In the end, we see Kelly continuing her climb to the top. She completes the climb she had set out to do with Luca, and as the sun rises, we hear the sounds of a helicopter in the distance.